Imagine what life used to be like without computers and all the technological advancements that are currently affecting economic and political aspects of most people's lives. There was not only limited communication between people from different countries, but also between individuals living in different parts of the same town. Now, emails and relatively inexpensive phone calls and many other means of communication facilitate interaction between people living on different continents, making them only a few seconds apart. The development of a world capitalist economy that puts emphasis on global trade and low barriers to economic cooperation has affected lives of almost all people across the globe. Karl Marx states that labor efficiency is dependent on the actual way in which productive forces, especially labor, are employed to serve the process of production of goods and services efficiently. Governments and multinational corporations that nowadays directly employ a large number of people are a direct inference of this Marxist argument. Today's members of the labor force are expected to achieve maximum level of productivity, and Marx states that through establishing relationships amongst one another, they will further be empowered to do so. However, the maltreatment of working force is not exactly helping multinational corporations achieve this goal. Since the Chinese government implemented reforms that pushed for a more open economy, the trade to GDP ratio quadrupled. However, the overall income inequality has risen, pointing out that the gap between the rich and poor is increasing. These really low minimum wage standards help China attract foreign direct investment. However, even Apple, who's considered to be the most powerful and innovative technological company of the 21st century, has been a subject of criticism regarding severe labor law violations. Foxconn, its major manufacturer, ever since joining Washington-based Fair Labor Association at the start of 2012, has been subject to pressure for labor policy improvements. They were severely criticized for low wages, excessive unpaid overtime, in addition to many other labor right violations. This New York Times video will show some of the employee viewpoints about their treatment at a Foxconn factory.
Foxconn is more humane than other companies in terms of company culture or the cafeteria and so on. It is more disciplined and stable. It doesn't matter if it is the annual leave or Lunar New Year, there is always welfare for the employees. As an ex-soldier and employee at Foxconn is just like home to me.
Yet many workers, particularly young men and women in their late teens who grew up as only children because of China's one-child policy, do not want to live under quasi-military discipline. Several workers told us of obscenity-laden harangues by factory foremen at Foxconn when they made mistakes or did not work quickly enough. Two women told of a friend who had returned in tears to her dormitory and even briefly thought of suicide. They refused to go on camera. Such stories were the exception, however, not the rule. But they show that the Foxconn factory in Chengdu can still be a tough place to work at times.
As there is an increasing focus on consumption of luxury commodities, less attention seems to be paid to the ordinary people whose lives are devoted to the actual production process of the items available in the luxury market. In the Chinese manufacturing towns, as shown by the video, everything seems to be turned into a commodity, including all the human contributions. According to Marx, this is the nature of capitalism, and Chinese society seems to represent this Marxist concept quite accurately. Marx states that human rights can never be more important than the economic gains. Therefore, China's overall economic policy framework seems to represent a paraphrase of Marx's central argument about a capitalist society. The wage minimum is not the only negative aspect of the Chinese workers' living conditions. Their employers often impose severe punishments and firings, and allow them to engage in operations without any formal contract. There is evidence of multiple suicide incidents at Foxconn's production factories in 2010 that sparked a wave of publicity about unsafe facilities. Young adults often work interruptedly for 35 hours, striving to meet their firm's requirements to respond to large turnover rates for certain product orders. Workers are not allowed to speak to each other during working hours. They usually perform repetitive, tedious tasks that lead to exhaustion and loss of interest. The learning curve while performing this type of jobs is practically stagnant, as they involve no formal training or interaction among co-workers. The suicide patterns could also be correlated to the fact that workers lack motivation and encouragement, which is directly related to lack of communication and long repetitive tasks. These tasks are usually performed by machines in the developed world. However, due to the existence of extremely low-paid labor in abundance that China currently offers to the rest of the world, these jobs have been moved here and are a major source of worker exploitation. If something similar was to happen in the developed world, workers would either organize huge strikes or let labor unions deal with employers who did not abide by the contracts. Chinese workers may engage in smaller protests or sign petitions that address their maltreatment. However, they're unlikely to organize a huge protest by themselves. We believe that this is true in particular for those workers that have left their families and came from across the country to earn a primary source of income for them. Therefore, they rarely complain for the maltreatment they receive and are afraid that they will lose their jobs. Still, these practices rarely seem to be associated with Apple's products, despite the fact that the back of each iPhone states, "Designed by Apple in California, assembled in China." We concluded that this is a result of Apple's branding efforts to present itself as an innovative company that offers the most recent technological advancements. The following statement of Tim Cook describes Apple's attitude to multiple media attacks intended to destroy the image of his company.
On Thursday, after a damning front-page story in the New York Times, Apple CEO Tim Cook emailed his staff. "Any suggestion that we don't care is patently false and offensive to us," he wrote. "We are attacking problems aggressively. It would be easy to look for problems in fewer places and report prettier results, but those would not be the actions of a leader."
Foxconn, with the help of Apple, has employed multiple initiatives to improve willingness of their workers to stay with a company long-term, including an increase in their average wage level of about 20% in the past few years. They also started providing some amenities that other companies of similar capacity are not able to afford. They built a soccer stadium, large-sized pool, an indoor gym, etc. that is at their workers' disposal. Anyway, these practices just seem like efforts to convince the public of Foxconn's good intentions to improve workers' lives and disassociate itself from the sweatshop image. It simply looks like a PR strategy intended to keep many of its Western clients that are the main contracting companies for Foxconn. In addition, Apple fears a scandal that could be caused by another attack on Foxconn's poor conditions for workers. This could make a lot of its customers switch to some alternative brands that offer the same or similar product quality, but treat their employers better. Some of Foxconn's labor treatment practices are an evident proof of negative consequences of globalization and capitalist society. The current view of many multinational corporations is that they are successful at generating profits, but they have done so by discriminating and undervaluing the importance of the working force, which represents a major component of the economic system. The increase in awareness and protests by labor unions have highlighted unsatisfactory working conditions. This has done little to influence the MNCs to contract Chinese manufacturing companies. Their main focus remains profit maximization, and even with the strong media attention dedicated to this issue, little seems to have changed. We just hope that changing customer views will push Apple and Foxconn to significantly improve their workers' living conditions, therefore creating better lives for hundreds of thousands of people in China.